and welcome to another episode of FranklinCovey On Leadership. I'm your host, Will Houghteling. Today's episode is a little different. After nearly 5 years working at FranklinCovey and nearly 40 episodes of On Leadership, I'm going to be moving on to a new opportunity. And so today's episode is going to be introducing you to your new host, who is the one and only Jen Colosimo. Jen Colosimo has been at FranklinCovey for many years. She served as our president of the enterprise division. She has served in a number of different sales leadership roles prior to that. She's been a delivery consultant. She's been a client partner, a chief learning officer, and much, much more. I have really enjoyed the opportunity to lead FranklinCovey On Leadership. I have had so many incredible conversations with leaders and leadership experts, and I'm excited to hand the reins over to Jen. Jen is an incredible leader herself, and she is charismatic and engaging, and she will be a wonderful host of this podcast conversation going forward. So Jen Colosimo, welcome to FranklinCovey On Leadership.
Thank you, Will, and let me congratulate you on your spectacular, insightful run as the host.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So for today's episode, I'd like to interview you as an introduction to the podcast. And so let's start a little bit on the personal side. I just gave a very brief intro on you as a FranklinCovey leader, but tell me about life outside of work. Kind of who are you?
You know, anytime anyone asks that, I think of the Wheel of Fortune, where they always say, my lovely husband and my beloved dog. But my husband is lovely and my dog is beloved. I have two grown daughters, and the two of them and their husbands live very near to us. So I love that. I live in Colorado, ski, hike. I started gardening during the pandemic. It's sad. It's sort of a sad garden, but I see it as a science experiment, right? Composting, gardening. So I have a lot of hobbies and a great family.
Awesome. We didn't get into your love of Elvis and your ability to do the full cheerleader kick. So maybe at some point on the podcast at the end, I'll invite you up to it. But I don't know if you fully stretched and limbered up and ready for it. So.
I'm not ready for a kick, but I do have an impressive amount of Elvis memorabilia.
Awesome. So let's talk about your career. You started your career as a human performance consultant at Accenture for 5 years before you joined FranklinCovey. What did you learn from that role that brought you to FranklinCovey?
It was such a great job as my first out of graduate school, and here's why. I think 5 years at Accenture is like 10 years somewhere else. It's still like that. Process, talent management, delivering on what you commit to, and innovation. They're innovation centers. They're always taking industry recommendations farther. I recently just had happy hour with one of my first managers. Truly impactful experience to start at Accenture. And I met my husband there.
Very important.
Many of my best friends are former Accenture. Some are still there. So great organization.
Great place to begin.
I'm a passionate member of their alumni association.
Awesome. So what brought you to FranklinCovey? How did you find out about the company, and why did you take the role originally?
When you got to a certain level at Accenture, you went through the 7 habits of highly effective people. And at that time, things have changed significantly. It was several days, and I was so impacted by the material. You and I have worked together for the years you've been here. Maybe I'm better now, but I still struggle with empathic listening. And the root cause of you can always make a choice has been so influential in my life and my career, and I wanted to work here more than I wanted to work anywhere else. I came after them pretty hard, and I was lucky to start when it was the Covey Leadership Center, a small privately held company, and the first work I did was assist with the merger with Franklin Quest.
Wow. Okay. So you've seen FranklinCovey in many different permutations of it. You've also held many different roles at this company, obviously, ultimately growing up to be the president of the enterprise division. At one point, you were a senior delivery consultant, so you have experience with all of our content firsthand. You've actually delivered the content. Which of the FranklinCovey solutions did you love to deliver the most, and why?
It would really depend on the situation. I have two. But in some situations, what people are really working on is leadership. And I believe fundamentally that you have to change how you think and then how you behave, and it can't just be a checklist. And so those challenging conversations around leadership at every level, I love the 7 habits, leading at the speed of trust, our 6 critical practices. I also did a significant amount of work with our 4 disciplines of execution, and just really getting into an industry and the challenges that industry is facing and what they can do to execute on their strategy they've spent so much time on is really fun work for a business mind, right? The financial, the operational, the talent. So both. I love kind of both sides of that as the most.
You transitioned from being a senior delivery consultant out in the field, delivering this content, consulting companies, to being a sales leader. What inspired you? What led to that change?
Well, early on after the merger, I had been in sales. So I had been one of our client partners, and I enjoy matching up what a client has as a challenge and what we can do to actually address that challenge. So having been in sales, having been in our delivery side, I then actually had the delivery consultants reporting into me as well. So I took delivery and sales leadership, and I love how the whole go-to-market motion fits together. And it's gotten, of course, more complex and more choices you can make, especially as you can be supported with AI in so many ways now, a different tech stack. But I love how it all fits together. So, and salespeople, they're unique. They're energetic. They like a lot of praise. And like you said, I'm a fan of a cheerleading kick. Fits well.
Absolutely. In our enterprise leadership team meetings, which you led, you were famous for the kind of early rah-rah speech at the beginning to kick off those meetings and have very fun prizes and praise and celebration for the people in the room. You really did that unlike anyone else. It was amazing.
Oh, I appreciate that. I had fun.
Exactly. And you could tell it was infectious. So as the president of the enterprise division, you had, 300, 400 people or so in your organization. Mm-hmm. What are one or two of the biggest challenges you faced in that role? And kind of what leadership lesson did you take from that you'd want to share with our audience?
I think a lot of leaders experience this, and it's the tension that you have between results. And particularly when you're in the commercial organization, your results are going to support everything else in the organization. You have to have something sell. And so that tension between we need to be successful, we need to get the results, and leading people in the way that I want to lead, how you get to it. I've been tempted to just say, just do it. Or carrot, you'll get this. Or stick, if you don't do it, we'll get this. And of course, those sometimes have their place. There has to be performance. But I think it's that tension between getting the result and how you get it. And are you too patient at this point? Were you too hard at this point? I will never feel like I am done learning to lead better. I don't know how you can be done. I know I've been in this field, but I don't feel like I will ever be done.
So about 6 months or so ago, you stepped back from being the president of the enterprise division, and you're now moving into your advising era, where you're taking all of the incredible insights that you've developed as a leader at the front lines of your career and then sharing that with the world more broadly. You are one of the co-authors of our new book on 6 critical practices for leading a team. So could you briefly just share about that book and the kind of key lessons that you're writing and sharing with the world?
Well, our tentative title is Expect a Lot, Care a Lot, the 6 critical practices of leading a team. And it's coming out in October.
Congratulations.
We're excited for the book to come out. It really speaks to the tension you and I were previously talking about. How do you expect a lot and care a lot? And this provides a framework for those leading a team, meaning how do all the pieces fit together, principle-based, based on the principles of clarity. Do people know their roles and what performance looks like? Based on the principle of potential. Do you coach? Not like an executive coach, but can you communicate as a coach so they can uncover what they know? How do you give feedback? Is it fuel or is it friction or is it even worse, right? How do you give feedback effectively, both positive, constructive, seeking? How do you delegate? I found so many times people really hate to delegate. They just resist it. And so if you see it as a way that you can enable someone's potential and how to delegate well, how do you bring energy instead of drain? And of course that taps into how many meetings do you have that make no sense and so on. And then how do you bring all that together in one-on-one relationships so you're building continuous connection? And I'm excited about the book. There's 3 other co-authors with me. One recently published a book with James Patterson on disruption. Another has been a book on management in the past, Everyone Deserves a Great Manager. And then a really strong executive coach who was formerly a CEO. So we've got all of our best thinking. It's been so fun. And then, you know what's not fun? The editing process. That part's not fun.
Maybe AI can help with that, as you were saying earlier.
I know.
So how is it going from a practitioner to a pundit? What has been your experience writing the book? Has it been more fun, more frustrating, some of both?
I think the thing that's hard for me is one of my key strengths is seeing how something can be improved. An operational process, the way things interact. I can see how they might come together. And so I've spent my career going to people saying, hey, I see this challenge. Here's how we might address it. I'd like to be part of addressing it. Right? That's been what I've done my whole career. And to see it and not come in, it's too soon. I'm still wanting to come in and I know what we should do. I'd like to do it. So I'm sure I'll get over that. The other part is it's really exciting to do something new. I mean, in your career, to be learning, to be growing. And while I did a long time ago co-write a book with Stephen R. Covey on a great career, it was small. And obviously, the great thought leader was Stephen R. Covey, right? I was
your name was in a slightly smaller font on the book cover.
Slightly smaller font, and I was the color, right? This is a completely different experience, getting to collaborate with those co-authors, represent the organization and the solution that we have that we can bring to teams. So it's like all transitions. I've got to finish my ending. I'm kind of in the messy middle, but very excited about what I've been able to start.
Awesome. So in your role as senior business advisor to FranklinCovey, one of your part of your portfolio is thought leadership and writing this book, and then you'll be going and speaking and on tour and whatnot. And then the next piece is taking over for me on leadership. It's been a joy these last 8-9 months or so. I've recorded almost 40 episodes at this point. I'm very curious to hear from you. Where are you hoping to take this podcast? And this is I'll put my earmuffs on and you can critique me publicly and I won't take any offense to it. But yeah, what's your vision for where this podcast should go?
Well, I've given you frequent feedback. I have listened to every episode. And what I love is how you ask questions that often you can tell the author or the leader is thinking about something in a different way. You're getting some great insights. I've loved it.
Cool.
So it would be wrong for me to say I'm not a bit intimidated about getting into your shoes and taking it. In terms of next steps, I hope to continue the legacy of us really tapping into the great leaders that we have all around the world, the ones that write, the ones that lead, that we can continue that learning journey together with your listeners and hopefully those that will continue to be mine.
Awesome. I did not, unfortunately, get to interview Mel Robbins for the podcast, but we did interview Mel Robbins for the FranklinCovey conference that we host every year online. And, she talks a lot about manifesting and taking our ideas and putting them out into the world, and hopefully they will then become true. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to manifest who are 2 or 3 dream guests for the podcast, and why would you be thrilled to interview them?
I have, through her career, followed Ursula Burns, who was the former CEO at Xerox. And she's so impressive as one of the first people of color, women CEOs. And that kind of breaking barriers and then bringing others along with you. And her book is amazing. I would love to interview her and hear about her contribution and the things she's doing. You've interviewed a lot of the AI experts and those that are talking about how to implementing it effectively. There are several on my list. I don't want to list them now because what if I only get one of them?
You don't want to insult the others.
I don't want to insult the others. I have it all in my head, but those that I follow, I recently attended an exec ed class in AI at UC Berkeley and so impressed with some of their work. So there's the tech side. There's the breaking barrier side. I love to hear about people who have and made a difference, obviously, in the results and the financials of the company. There was more than breaking barriers. But I have a list. I'm manifesting it here.
Okay, great. And so all of our podcasts, and it's up to you if you want to continue this tradition or not, but since I've started, we end every interview with the same question, which is FranklinCovey as a leadership company. Who is a leader that has greatly influenced you, and what lesson can we all take from them? So I'm going to end my handover interview on that question of you.
This is not a famous person. This is not
Great.
a famous person, but I mentioned that one of my first managers at Accenture, and I recently met up with her. The reason she impacted me is FranklinCovey's mission is to enable greatness. We believe in potential. She truly saw my potential, both in results, what I could do, way before I did. And she would coach me through greater opportunities. And even now, at my age, when I meet her, she said, I always knew you would be able to do great things. And I can think of things that she did that encouraged that. On the other hand, when I did really dumb things, as you might do in your first job out of graduate school, she told me. It wasn't someone who was nice, it was someone who cared and wanted me to get better. And when she would say, when you did this, this was the impact. We can't do that again. I wasn't offended. I would think she wants me to be the best I can be. So in case she listens, and I'll send it to her, her name's Karen Lose.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited to hand the reins over to you. And as I do, I'll give you an opportunity to ask me one closing question as I head off into my next opportunity.
Well, I want to ask you the same with a little bit of a twist on it. You've been interviewing all of these great leaders. So you've had the experience of interviewing, working with so many great leaders. Tell us about something or someone that you learned that you think would be applicable and interesting to our audience.
Absolutely. It's interesting. As I've asked this question over the course of the last 40 episodes, it is a question that actually generates longer pauses from guests than almost any other question, because I think they're running through in their mind, oh no, if I say this person, then this other person that I've worked with will be offended. So I'm actually not going to choose one of our guests, because I fear in choosing a guest, the other ones will be like, oh, you didn't like my episode?
Mine was good.
My episode I thought it was so insightful. And I'm going to choose 3 leaders from my career that actually kind of followed the arc of kind of my own development. So the first person I'm going to call out is my first ever boss. When I was 22 years old, I joined Google in a rotational program, and I reported into a guy named Ariane Dyke. He was a director of marketing at Google. He went on to be the CMO of Booking.com, and he really advocated for and believed in his team. That was one powerful lesson I learned from him. He demanded excellence of the people that he worked with, but he was understanding when you did not meet those high expectations. So the expect a lot, care a lot mindset that you shared earlier. And he was a lot of fun to work with. He was a Dutch guy, colorful character, kind of willing to share his mind. And so he was somebody who he shaped me early on and had a big influence. The second leader that I would talk about is the leader that I've worked for over the last 4 years here at FranklinCovey, Paul Walker. So Paul is FranklinCovey's CEO. And there's a great Stephen R. Covey quote that leadership is communicating people's worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. And I think that Paul does that beautifully. He really believes in the people that he works with, and he demonstrates that belief, and he helps you think of yourself in even in a better way than you do already. And he, in doing so, inspires people to aspire to the best version of themselves. So I'm incredibly grateful for all I've learned from Paul. The third person who I'm going to work for now, so I'm actually 16 years later going back to Google. My next opportunity will be joining the Gemini team to work on AI products at Google. And I'm going to be working for someone named Josh Woodward. When I started at Google as a 22-year-old in this rotational program, Josh had just finished a master's program, and he and I were actually sitting next to each other. We were teammates, and he's been there for 16 years. He now has moved up the ranks, and he's leading the Gemini organization. He actually called me a few weeks ago about this opportunity, and it was so exciting that I decided after 5 years to go and join him. And he has a real earnest, infectious enthusiasm, curiosity, and optimism. I think that it's easy as a leader to often be cynical about the world and about your team and about the future. And in some ways, cynicism can sound smart. Optimism is a lot more courageous and daring, and it's also a lot more infectious. And I think that Josh is someone who is incredibly naturally curious and very optimistic about the way the world will develop, the way products will develop, the way the company will grow and aspire and ascend. And so I'm very excited to go and work for Josh in my next step. So that's kind of the career arc of leaders that I've worked with who've greatly influenced me. There's obviously many others that I can name along the way. Steve Grove and Karen Nortman and many others also have big influences on me, but those are three that I would call out. So that's it. Thank you so much, Jen. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining me this last year on leadership. It has been a privilege to be able to speak with so many incredible leaders and learn the hard-earned insights that they have picked up along the way and to share those with you. I know that you will be in better hands with Jen than you were with me, and hope that you continue to listen, subscribe, and share on leadership. Thank you so much, and good luck on your leadership journey.